Hello and welcome to Changing Health Behaviors. Dr. Diane Decker and I are going to discuss the importance of psychology in making personal health improvements. And to succeed at changing health behaviors, we need to become skilled at thinking helpful thoughts which influence our actions as well as how we feel, and in the long run, positive change over time. My name is Lisa McNichol-Gatan, and I'm the Health and Wellness Coordinator with the City of Albuquerque's Human Resources Department. I lead the Employee Wellness Program. And our program mission, is to reduce chronic conditions associated with inadequate levels of physical activity, poor nutrition, and tobacco use. And because behavior change is so complex, we offer our employees as well as family members a variety of interventions to either make personal improvements in their health, make some changes in their homes, make some changes in the work site itself, and we also look at how we can impact the community, because all of these settings influence the way we behave. So today we are going to focus on the personal behavior change, but I just wanted to make the point that all of these things influence our behavior, and again, that it is very complex. Now, the goal of the program today is to help our viewers increase knowledge in the area of health behavior change, and we hope to leave you with some resources that you can take with you and adopt, and hopefully make your own personal changes in nutrition, physical activity, and smoking cessation. So with me today is Dr. Diane Decker, and Diane is a licensed psychologist, and she's also a registered nurse who has been in private practice since 1986. Welcome, Dr. Decker, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the privilege.
You have a wealth of knowledge, and I look forward to untapping it the next 30 minutes. I want to let you know that Dr. Decker earned a PhD in counseling psychology, and she has worked in a variety of psychology settings over time, including education, nursing, counseling, and as a life coach. So let's begin our questions. Dr. Decker, would you please give our viewers a brief job description of a psychologist?
I'd be happy to. To be simple, I'll just say that most psychologists work in two arenas, either treatment or prevention. And we work in a variety of settings, as has been described by some of my work settings where I worked. Mm-hmm. We're part of an integrated healthcare team. So if you look at when you go to the doctor, you'll typically have your MD or your nurse practitioner. You might have an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, a physical therapist. Mm-hmm. Now, in many healthcare settings, they also have psychologists who are part of the team. And the reason for that is because I don't really think this is necessarily a surprise, but it may be for some that nearly half of all Americans who are between the ages of 15 and 54 experience a mental disorder in their lifetime. I think that's low.
Okay.
And there's also a minimum, Lisa, of about 60% of all people who present in emergency rooms or in primary care are presenting with symptoms that have a psychological basis. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, as part of a healthcare team, many times the physician who has to see, or the nurse practitioner has to see so many people over a period of time, doesn't have time to sit and explore in full what's going on in a person's home or at work. Like you were stating earlier, the different aspects, the spoke of the wheel of a person's life that might be contributing to their health status. So in terms of treatment, we try to work with people to remediate and to recover from their psychological problems like post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety. We use medication, cognitive behavioral therapies, many different kinds of therapies, and talk with a lot of people about how to deal with life stress.
Okay.
So then you were, I think at one point, maybe before this interview, we were talking about the role of positive change and how we also...
Well, let's let's think about this. What I'm curious to know with your role as a psychologist and in the preventive line, as you're also a life coach.
Yes.
And so I know that you work with people in changing health behaviors, and I'm wondering if you might share some of the differences between traditional counseling therapy and working with a life coach. What do you do as a life coach?
Life coaching for me is really just a part of what I do as a psychologist. And as I mentioned earlier, psychologists work in treatment as well as prevention. And this is an area, in my opinion, of prevention. And if you can think of a continuum of a person being bedridden, not being able to get up for whatever reason, an accident or what have you. So they're on this end of the continuum. They finally get stabilized to the point where the physical therapist comes in and helps them walk. Hopefully they get out of the hospital, they go to physical therapy more, and they start running. And then they might be doing a marathon. So therapy on an inpatient level is when you are working with people who've been in an accident, who are really severely depressed, suicidal, or what have you. Therapy.
Okay.
Optimal work with wellness is when you're working with a person who's going beyond their health, going to their max potential, living their life to their fullest. Flourishing is what I call that. And so life coaching is an opportunity to talk with people who want to make a strategic life plan about making a specific change in their lives. I work with individuals as well as couples where, let's say that you feel like you're pretty psychologically fit, right? I mean, overall, pretty healthy.
Okay.
Okay, life is pretty good. I'm going on a normal path, but when we really stop and we talk, you might say, I'm not quite as happy as I'd really like to be. I don't feel that what I'm doing is as meaningful as I'd like it to be. Lots of times we get in a rut and we forget what our dreams were. We don't even look at what they are now, how they may have changed. So the coaching component in consultative work that I do as a psychologist gives us the opportunity to be very proactive about recognizing that we only have so many days left. How do we want to live them? And what realistically, how can we get there? So it's really a fun part of the work I do, and I call myself a change agent. One of the things that's really nice is that when a person comes in for coaching, they're really the pilot. I'm just their co-pilot, and I provide a safe, hopefully, environment that's confidential, that's encouraging, that gives them an opportunity to be accountable, to make life change in a way that is really congruent with their values and their beliefs.
So we have the pilot and the co-pilot. So it's really the individual that's seeking these dreams and wanting to make some positive health behavior changes, whether it's to lose weight and to really improve their health. I mean, they could come to you for that, just get into a regular exercise program and improve their marriage and all kinds of things that they can do as a life coach.
And just feel better, feel more vital.
Okay. Well, I like that co-pilot and pilot analogy there. I know that in the field of changing health behaviors, there's a whole science. I mean, researchers have studied this for decades. And I'd like you to describe how people make changes in going from where they are to where they really want to be, closing that gap. And if you could describe the science behind making health behavior changes.
Sure. We need to thank two researchers. Many more than that, actually, but the originals were in the early 80s, Di Clemente and Prochaska. They wrote an article about smoking cessation, and in that article they described a process of change. Note, I'm saying that change is a process, it's not an event. And it's called a Transtheoretical Model, which means it goes beyond all theories. It can be applied to any theory. So what it has is 5 stages that I'm going to briefly describe. And we'll start out with the first stage, which is the Pre Contemplation Stage. And this is when everybody else around you might be saying, Lisa, I think you need to quit doing such and such. I have the feeling that some couples might be able to identify with this, because sometimes the wife might say, you really need to quit eating that kind of food, those potato chips, or you need to, quit
smoking,
quit smoking,
exercise
or
more.
you need to get yourself to the gym, whatever. Well, the other person is not into it at all. It's just kind of going in one ear and out the other. But a little bit of them might be hearing this and be wondering. But that's the pre-contemplation phase,
okay,
or stage. Then we move to the contemplation phase, and that's when a person starts thinking, Lisa, maybe you're right. Maybe I should quit eating a bag of potato chips every day. Maybe I should just have like a couple of cups full, whatever.
Thinking about it.
Right, so I'm thinking, contemplating the change. Frequently what happens is an event will occur which will get a person to move from the extrinsic motivation to the intrinsic motivation, and they'll take ownership. And it can be an accident. It can be a heart attack. It can be from smoking when I get pneumonia over and over, or bronchitis and I can't seem to clear my lungs. Okay? And that event really gets me thinking when I'm in bed, not able to move, having very little energy. And so then I move from the contemplation to the preparation phase. And in that phase, there are two aspects. There's the commitment, where I own it. It's no longer you telling me. It's I know that I need to quit eating so many potato chips. In fact, I really hate what I look like. I kind of look like a bag of potato chips, right? And I don't want that anymore. And I'm clear about it. Nobody has to convince me. I'm persuaded. So then I can move right into the planning in the preparation phase, coming with some very specific steps of how to move forward to meet my goals. So then I move, after I've developed the plan, then I move into the action stage of change, and that's when I'm actually implementing all of those steps. Then from the action phase, I move into the maintenance phase, which can hopefully last a lifetime. And there's a lot of relapse prevention strategies that need to, sometimes people need help with in that maintenance phase, because people find it easy sometimes to get off track. But with encouragement and with the plan, you can get back on track.
And it's not the linear process. You go from I want to make a change to change happens. You go through some trials and things work and things don't work, and it's a little up and down, and you gradually make improvements over time.
Absolutely.
So it may not just be like I'm going to
And it may be like this. I mean, you're going like this. That's ideal, but
that's where
for
I
some,
am now.
so you're
But in
maintaining
the
well.
beginning, any change that I was making, it was
Yes.
up and down.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons people seem to get benefit out of seeking the help of a psychologist or another healthcare professional, is because frequently people will go like this, and then they'll go like this, and then they'll stop totally, and they'll go back to their previous behaviors. And if people have had over time many trials, shall I say, at changing their behavior, and they're not successful, sometimes if you pay for something, you follow through.
So you would help guide people to get into the planning phase and then taking action. So let's talk about the planning stage. I have heard you talk about setting smart and smarter goals. And could you describe what smart and smarter goals are and why set them?
Sure will. Well, again, we need to attribute or give thanks to a guy by the name of Doran. He was the first person who gave us SMART goals, and this was in the area of business, and they were so successful that they, just like the stages of change, have been used by people all over in many different professions, including healthcare and behavior change. So why use SMART goals? And I'll tell you in a moment what that means. But the primary reason for using it is because SMART goals diminish ambiguity. Many times we don't make change because there's no clarity. So they make our goals very concise, tangible, stepwise, and achievable as a result. So let's go to SMART, S-M-A-R-T, and then the E-R on the end, which was added. S means specific. So we need to make our goals very specific rather than general. Like, I want to get in shape. That's kind of general, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So more specific, we might need to answer the questions: who, what, why, where, when, and which. Sounds really simple, but it takes time to sit down, write out in a very detailed fashion that what I'm going to do is I'm not just going to get in shape, I am going to lose 10 pounds between now and in 3 months from now. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go and get a gym membership. Oh, wait a minute. Which gym? And when am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do that this afternoon, and I have a multitude of gyms that I could go to, so I won't mention that. But then, why do I want to do this? I want to do this because I want to feel more healthy. I want to get in shape, and that means to me to have more energy, and that's the way I'm going to do it. So that's a lot more specific than saying I'm just going to go get in shape.
Very much more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the M is for measurable, and that amplifies on the specific part of things, but it makes things visible and tangible.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10 pounds and me envisioning that and also having a way to measure that. I think we're going to talk about some of those things later.
Okay.
But because there's lots of ways to measure our progress, and it's very important that that's a component. So A is attainable. Is my goal achievable for me? Is it something that I really value? Mm-hmm. Is it realistic? R. In order for it to be realistic, I have to be willing to work at it. And is it timely? T is for timely. It's important that I just don't say that I'm going to go get that gym membership and get in shape. I have to have a sense of urgency that I take ownership of. And it may be that I've just had a heart attack, and that's giving me a sense of urgency. But if I can say that I need to start, I'm going to start this week. Mm-hmm. In fact, Saturday's not going to come before I've accomplished this goal. There's a sense of urgency about it that I impose. And there's another part of the T too that's tangible.
Okay.
And where we can put all of our senses to it. I think what's really important is for people to be able to visualize with total clarity where they want to be, from where we are to where we want to be. Let me take a photograph of what I will look like 10 pounds less. Mm-hmm. We can do that with Photoshop. Mm-hmm. All right? So can I feel it, touch it? Yeah, I can feel less fat. Mm-hmm. Can I smell it? Yeah, I can smell the vegetables instead of the potato chips, right? Mm-hmm. Can I taste it? Oh, you bet there's a difference between the crunch of celery and the taste of that than there is chocolate cake, even though I like that too. Okay, so all of the senses, and then being able to visualize that and remind myself of that frequently so it can help keep me on track. The E and the R in SMARTER are evaluate and reevaluate. That's a consistent thing that we have to always do.
Okay. So let's move on then from the planning stage to the action stage. Using tracking tools is an effective way to eat better and maintain a regular exercise pattern. And I would like you to give us some examples of tracking tools, and if you could offer some insight into why they work.
Well, have you ever heard of biofeedback? I think a lot of the viewers may have heard of that. It gives you direct, immediate, concrete, visual feedback about your behavior. You can't lie when something's been tracking and it's kind of like a mirror. You can't lie when you look in the mirror. So that's what a tracking device does. It helps because our memories fail, even in young people who are so distracted and multitasking. Okay, so a tracking tool helps provide you feedback so you can stay on track. And it's been shown in research that tracking tools really do make a difference in increasing the probability of people being successful. One of the ones that I've used that I found very helpful is MyFitnessPal. And there's a ton that you can download from the internet. There's WebMD, there's what is that wrist one that they have? Is it the one that Nike has put out, or I think Jawbone or something.
I don't know the name, but some pedometers that
Yeah.
show you your steps each day, and you're going to shoot for more each day.
Exactly.
But it gives you the feedback as to what you accomplished.
There's no reason, no one should be left without an opportunity to have a tracking device, because they're like GPSs, right? They take us to where we want to go.
And they help you then also do the evaluation and the reevaluation. I mean, I remember using one long ago, many years ago, just when I got into exercise, having to need to lose weight, and I was just tracking the exercise session. Did I do it or not? I had a yes or no tracking tool.
Easy.
And where I saw a gap, and when I would go back to, just naturally I was evaluating, didn't know at the time it was a step. But to say, what happened during that time, and how can I get over that to prevent it from happening in future years? And now I exercise quite regularly, and I use tracking tools. So
Can I also mention, it's perfect because it does help you stop and look at what was it that made me successful or not.
Right.
And you always have choice points. And so, do I take that chocolate cake or not? The other thing that I wanted to share is that I think a lot of people who don't want to use one of these tracking tools that are out there can create one of their own very simply, even starting today. Have you ever heard of a Likert scale? So what I encourage people to do when they come to my sessions is they have to fill out an evaluation tool every time before they come into my office, so that they know very specifically where they've been and where they want to go in that particular session. But there's also dysfunctional thought record kind of monitors for people, that you can track what your thoughts were at the time that you decided that you weren't going to stay on track with a certain behavior. But you can do that just in a journal form. Get yourself a little notebook, and I show people how to track those kinds of things. A Likert scale is from 1 to 10. How successful was I today in terms of staying on track with my exercise plan, just like you were just saying? Well, I was at an 8, 80%, or a 5. And when you have numbers, then you can graph them. So.
Okay, great. Those are great practical tools I think that our viewers can use. How about this question, Diane? Is there a limit to how many changes a person should tackle at once?
Well, I guess it depends on you, Lisa. If you're a multitasker and you think you can take it all on, I'll be there and I'll encourage you. But the likelihood of you succeeding at all of them at once is probably not as great as if you take one little step at a time. It reminds me of what's, I think, in the outside the elevator downstairs. One step at a time. Be good to your body. One step at a time. Don't take the elevator, take the steps. And so I think that's a great analogy. It has typically taken people a long time to get to the place where they are today in terms of being overweight or having whatever addiction problem they have. It takes time. So be kind to yourself, break down your change behavior into little steps, and research has demonstrated that the chances are much greater that you will stay in your new behavior if you take little steps at a time.
Great, perfect. Okay, so let's talk about perspective and really how we think about things. The way I've heard it is that perspective may be the bread and butter of coaching.
That's
and
awesome.
So, we need to become skilled at changing our interpretation of events. Maybe instead of viewing problems, we see opportunities for growth. Or maybe instead of being reactive to circumstances, we choose to be proactive to the circumstances. How do you suggest people adopt helpful perspectives to becoming their best?
That's right on. It's right on with what psychologists do, because we work with people along the lines of what they think and how it impacts their emotions and how it impacts their behaviors. So I think wasn't it Buddha who said, I have the direct quote in here somewhere, but it's something like, you become what you think. All right? So beware of what you think, because you may, here it is. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything What we think, we become. And then in Proverbs it says, watch over your heart, and some people consider the heart and the mind very, very connected. Watch over it with all diligence, for out of it flows the springs of life. So I think what people need is to realize that what you feast your brain on is going to create a river in your mind, okay? And if you're feasting your mind on negative thoughts, I can't do this, I'll never be able to do that, you will believe that. If you tell yourself, your inner dialogue, that you can, that I'm in the process of becoming my vision of who I want to really be, and you start believing that. So it's what you say to yourself. It's what you feed yourself with. So does that answer your question?
It does.
We need to be thankful instead of being pessimists. We need to be optimists.
Looking forward. So going forward, I think we have time for our final wrap-up. You brought several resources here, and I'm wondering if you would please share your top resource with us.
I sure will. Well, there's many, and that's why I brought all of these, and there's many more where they come from. I like to encourage people who I see. I like to try to tailor my resources to the individual. But since this is to an open audience, I will tell you that two of my favorite resources are this one by Covey. This is the little version for people who don't like to read too much, and this is the larger version. And what Covey talks about is the 7 habits of highly effective people, and he talks about the public and the private domain, and I'm just going to open this up and just real quickly share that he talks about victory. You'll have a private victory if you're proactive, if you begin with the end in mind, put first things first, and then you'll have a public victory if you think win-win, seek first to understand and then to be understood, synergize, and constantly take time out to sharpen your saw, to refreshen yourself.
Okay, so Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey.
Okay. All right. Well, we may have gotten a shot of the different resources. The next one was Flourish by Martin Seligman.
He's a biggie in positive psychology. He's very good.
Well, you know, as you can see, there's just so much to cover, I think, in the field of changing health behaviors. And Diane, I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you,
You have
Lisa.
a wealth of knowledge on the topic, and I know that we've barely scratched the surface. So hopefully I'll be able to host another show on the topic, and maybe you'd be willing to join me and we can go forward.
Oh, that's kind of you.
I would love that.
Thank you.
So I guess I would like to end with a quote, and I'm going to go to the National Dance Institute of New Mexico, where they encourage children and everybody in their program to do their best, work hard, never give up, and be healthy in the process. And you know, Shakespeare said, "Nothing is but thinking makes it so." So just to remember the psychological aspect of changing health behaviors.
Very important.
So thank you very much for joining us today.